Hi there, Lazy Millennials. Thank you for joining us today for another episode of the Lazy Millennial Lounge. We have with us Candace Victoria Mitchell, co-founder and CEO of Techturized, a high-tech hair care company, and Myavana, a personalized hair care service. Thank you so much for joining us today, Candace.
No problem. I'm excited to be here.
Just to give you a little bit of background about Candace, and then I'll let her go into her background a little more in detail. But Candace is a graduate of Georgia Tech, and she graduated with her degree in computer science. She then went on to co-found the company Techturized, which then launched its consumer brand Myavana. And Myavana, like I mentioned, is a personalized hair care service that recommends products and services to individuals based on the scientific analysis of their individual hair type and texture. So it's a really cool concept, and I'm just amazed at how Candace has been able to take this brand and company and really grow it and scale it up. She's been featured in very high profile media outlets that I'll let her talk a little bit more about. But she's also now a published author. Congratulations, Candace.
Thank you so much.
And she's also a speaker, coach, and consultant. So you definitely have a lot going on. And I know we won't be able to touch on everything, but hopefully you'll be able to give us a nice glimpse into what it's like to be an entrepreneur. So if you wouldn't mind starting by just giving us a little bit about your background and how the concept of Techturized and Myavana came about.
Sure. So my background is in computer science. I've been a software developer for just about 14 years now. I started out building websites when I was in high school. So my first programming language was HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And as I started out in that arena, I just was really open to the world of software, what you can program computers to do. And I was just very inspired and thought to myself, wow, I would love to develop some software that would be used on millions of computers and now mobile phones around the world. And so that's my background. Fast forward to college, and what I will say, along with my background, my passion, has always been technology, but I've also had a passion for hair for quite a long time. And at one point, I was considering becoming a hairstylist. And so I thought my perfect world was a blend between computer science and cosmetology. So that was the world that I envisioned. And when I was in college, I went natural in 2008. And the process of me going natural, I just realized that, number one, it was rather difficult to figure out which products to use to get a certain outcome for your hair, especially depending on your unique hair type and texture. And, I just started using a lot of my roommate's products, and slowly but surely, my hair started to dry off. It was breaking. I believe I had blonde color at the time. So everything I was doing was just putting my hair in a really unhealthy state. And so one day I looked in the mirror and saw that my hair had broken completely off, and I was just devastated. And I kind of had a light bulb moment, there should be some type of software that can tell you the right product for your hair. And so I started researching the science of hair, and I realized wow, I could really invent something that can help women, who are on a similar hair care journey. And so I took my first step towards that by entering a pitch competition called the ENTREPRENEURIAL, where you can invent your own idea and pitch it for funding. And this was at Georgia Tech while I was still in college. And I made it to the semifinals. I was really proud of myself. I had to really devote my time back to my schoolwork so that my grades wouldn't fall. But I, always decided that I wanted to continue working on the idea. And actually, 1 year after I graduated from college, I had the opportunity to actually turn my idea into a real business. And I got accepted to a tech startup accelerator. And I decided to quit my full-time job and go directly into entrepreneurship. And so that's how kind of like my background led me to starting my company and where I am today.
Wow, that's amazing. So when you graduated, so one, you already had this concept while you were in school, and then I take it while you were working full time, you were still working on the concept for this company at the same time. Is that correct?
I was.
So what was
So,
that like balancing that?
yeah, so it kind of happened organically because I just started getting these signs that I needed to work on my hair. I did, and so I would actually work on it on nights and weekends, and really primarily on the weekends.
Okay.
Because I did go into IT straight after college, and so my work life, was pretty much working from 7:30 a.m. to 4, and then going home to change to go to the gym, come home, cook dinner, watch some TV, pretty much go to sleep, and do that every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So the traditional 9 to 5er, and so my time that I had to really, because I'm the type of person where when you're creating something, whether you're creating a product, you're creating a blog, anything that has to do with creating something new, like I feel like you need to be in a certain mental state, like in a certain, to really tap into the energy of bringing that to life. So I really only have the time to do that on the weekends. But I will say that, once you just start devoting some time, it doesn't even matter if it's 1 hour a day or if it's one day a week, small steps, really can move things forward, and you just start putting things into the atmosphere that attracts to you the right opportunities. And so what I mean by that is, because I was working on it every weekend, I would call some of my friends that have started their own hair product line, that were hairstylists, just to kind of learn more about the market. And I was doing that, one day a week, sometimes two days a week on the weekends, over 6 months or so. And then when I was recruiting for my job back at Georgia Tech, I ran into my professor who taught me entrepreneurship. And when I met him, he was like, what about your hair idea? Remember you did the pitch competition? And I was like, funny you mentioned that. I did go into corporate America, but I have been working on my idea every weekend since then. And he was like, oh, well, let me tell you about this new startup accelerator that I just launched. We're actually taking applications for the new cohort of entrepreneurs, and you should apply. And I was like, okay, you know what, I will. So, what that lesson is that, it's a perfect example of preparation meeting opportunity. So, if I were to run into him and was like, oh, I know I worked on the idea in college, I haven't been, haven't gone back to it, blah, 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 kind of dropped it, he wouldn't have thought that I was still serious about it. And I might not have even known that I was being prepared for that very moment. So that's kind of how I was able to work on it, while I had a full-time job. And again, it's just a little time consistently can really prepare you in ways that you might not expect.
And also, you'll be surprised at what people remember that you're doing.
Exactly.
That you could have had no idea or had no expectation that professor would have remembered your project, or that you were working on this or had this idea. But a lot of times I come into contact with people and they're like, oh, I've been reading your blog, like, when's your next post? And I'm like, I had no idea that you even knew that this was a thing. And it just goes to show that you never know who your work is impacting or what type of influence you're having on people. So definitely having that motivation and dedication and staying the course is meaningful, not only for your personal journey, but also for the way that you influence and motivate other people.
Exactly.
How exactly did you, I guess, know that you wanted to go into entrepreneurship? You mentioned a course, so I take it that you kind of had that entrepreneurship bug in you while you were still in school. Was that something that you always had, or was it something that was kind of planted in you at some point later down the line?
Well, the bug kind of hit me while I was in college.
Okay.
And I just remember sitting in front of my computer one day because I honestly ran into kind of a brick wall with my major. So I just feel like I was very disconnected in my classes. And a lot of it came from the fact that, oftentimes I was the only Black person or the only woman in class. So it's a very isolating feeling. And I just remember thinking, like, I just don't feel connected anymore. I don't feel passionate. But I know that I love computer science. I just really need to apply it in a different way to kind of bring that passion, tap into that passion again. And so I was like, okay, well, what other things do I love and am I passionate about? And of course, as I said before, it was hair. So I was like, I wonder if there's a way I can combine like my love for technology and my love for hair. And that's when the bug hit me that, I should create something new. And that's what entrepreneurs do. They invent or create something that solves a need or solves a problem in a market. And that's when I started to learn, just exactly what entrepreneurship was, and how I could tap into it. So that's kind of when the bug hit me. And then, as I mentioned, I just needed to try to get my feet wet, and learn as much as possible. And that's why I entered the pitch competition, because what was cool about it is that they had classes like leading up to the pitch competition where they brought in different speakers and who spoke about, how they built their company. And it was just like, it was just phenomenal. It was kind of like really my first time being exposed to entrepreneurship. And so that was really a draw for me. I'll definitely have to say that, it kind of hit me like during my college years, and I just decided to continue tapping into that curiosity that I had. Even if I never did it before, if I didn't even know anyone that did it before, I was just like, okay, I'm going to enter this pitch competition, or I'm going to go to this class, or I'm going to read this book. Like, I just kept following where I felt like, that curiosity was leading, and really what my spirit was kind of leading me to do. So that's what kind of led me the most into it.
And that's so courageous to follow that curiosity, even in a space like tech, which I guess is traditionally thought of as kind of a white man's world, where, you mentioned being the only Black person or the only woman in many cases, or, especially the only Black woman in your classes, but also in these competitions and these other programs that, you may have been involved in. So what was that like? Because it seems like, so I was like on your website and I was binge watching everything. Very, very great information on your website, by the way. But I remember at one point you were talking about how Myavana started as a service for African American women's hair specifically, but has since then expanded to be inclusive of all ethnicities. But I would imagine when you all were pitching that concept initially, and it was specifically catered to Black women's hair, that there may have been, you spoke about a personal disconnect, but maybe there would have been a disconnect between the audience that you were delivering these ideas to, because that audience doesn't look like we do. So how was the reception of that concept?
Yeah, it was a huge disconnect. Honestly, I remember even the first time I pitched for the semifinals, number one, all the judges, they were old white men with bald heads. So it was just like, it was like night and day. Here I am, young black woman talking about hair, old, white, bald, never heard about the hair, or let me reiterate, never even cared about the hair and beauty industry. Um, so it was like night and day. But I will say the thing that allowed me to make that connection is when I started talking about the market numbers.
Okay.
So once I said that hair care industry, well, the hair products industry is a $10 billion market, and Black women spend 33% of the money generated in that market, and we're only 6% of the U.S. population.
Wow.
They were like, whoa, okay, now you're talking. So tell me about that world.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's that's what bridged the gap, right? Because, you have to learn what, even if you have an audience, and you will have an audience that is different from you from time to time, understanding, what is that common ground, and how can I explain it in a way where I can benefit from the knowledge that they have. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to do like, oh, they don't know anything about me. They don't know anything about this market. Let me go talk to someone else. But if they're multimillionaires, or if they're leaders in their field, they're world-renowned people, I'm sure you can learn a thing or two from them.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, so part of it is understanding what is going to tap into their interests so that they are receptive to hearing more. But also just having the harsh realization that sometimes they still won't care, because unfortunately, some people still do carry a lot of stereotypes when it comes to your market, when it comes to your gender, when it comes to your age. And, what I like to say is, those people are not my people. So I can just keep it moving to someone who is going to help me. And so that was pretty much our journey when it came to raising money. In the venture capital world, of course, a lot of you all may have heard of this before, but, less than 1% of all venture capital deals go to minorities.
Wow.
And when we're talking about minority women, it's like closer to 0% than it is to 1%.
Wow.
So, when the odds are against you like that, and mind you, when we started, we had no idea that the statistics were this bad. Like now, I think it was maybe in 2016 when the study was finally published. It's a study called Project Diane on the funding success for Black women in tech. And I believe at the time they counted, there might have been 14 women in the entire country who've raised more than $1 million for their business. And so that's when the numbers came out. So we started in 2012. So we just out here like, okay, we're going to do it. Like not realizing, the mountains that were in front of us. And so, we came to a place where we were really spinning our wheels, not getting the responses from investors, because again, the disconnect, in meetings, we're spending more time educating them about the market, trying to convince them that they want to invest in this market. So it was more so like we were coming in defending ourselves versus them, already being open or receptive, because, that was just the dynamic. So, it was an uphill battle. And, because of that, we raised our money in different ways. So we didn't go the traditional venture capital route. We raised our money through our family and friends, through angel investors, crowdfunding campaigns, and pitch competition. So, the one thing I got from entering that my first one at Georgia Tech is I realized I'm actually really good at it. And I ended up raising like over $200,000 in free money and free
Wow.
services. And, you know, the blessing in that, the blessing in disguise was that we haven't given away a lot of equity in our company.
That's
So
wonderful.
it gave us the liberty to build as we wanted to versus being forced to give a lot of equity away, which unfortunately a lot of founders find themselves in that position.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of like, you know, the landscape of, you know, how that disconnect really perpetuates into a lot of things when you're trying to grow your business. And it's things that we still face today, but, you know, it just helps you understand like the right mindset to have while you're in this.
So what would you recommend for millennials who find themselves, you know, maybe wanting to start a company or, you know, associate themselves with a startup and kind of get out there and try to raise funds, especially if they are in a minority group? What would you recommend them to do to prepare for that journey that they'll be going through?
So the number one thing I recommend is to prove out your business model and have some early traction or early customers that you can show.
Okay.
Because that is the proof that you need to have. Instead of telling someone like, oh, my company does this, we think this is our market, blah, 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 you're saying, oh, my business has grown X percent and we already have, you know, 2 paying customers or however number many paying customers. It's like actually showing that your product or business idea is viable and you've proven it out to where it's actually working.
Okay.
I think that, and this is really what we experienced in hindsight. Now that I look back, is that most people try to gain investment too early.
Okay.
And because you're too early, it causes you to run into all of these roadblocks. And so when I look back to our first year in business, we were really raising money too early. If we really should have spent that time, the time that we spent fundraising, we should have spent that time actually getting real customers.
Okay.
So if we would have done that, by the end of that 1 year, you'll be able to go to an investor and say, or even, you know, building some traction or interest in your business. Even let's say it's the email list. You know, spending your time building your email list, because you can go to an investor and say, you know, it's the difference from saying, oh, I have this amazing idea, this is how it's going to work, to saying, oh, I have this amazing idea, and actually 20,000 people have already joined my list. They're ready for my product, and I just need someone who can help me with investment to really get this product out to them. And that's going to be like, oh, now you're talking. You know,
right.
you have something to show. And so that would be what I wholeheartedly recommend, because, again, I think that we create perceived barriers, meaning that we think that funding is a barrier to launching an idea or growing a business. When in actuality, if you just go ahead and do it with the resources that you have, you automatically eliminate that barrier, because once you do have the opportunity to sit with an investor that can help you, you're bringing something to the table. And so that would be my number one advice in terms of attracting funding and resources.
That's great advice. I'll definitely be sharing that because I think that a lot of people just don't really know where to start or how to go about putting themselves in the best position. So I think that can really help a lot of people. What would you say?
Right.
What would you say was, I guess, one of your biggest successes thus far as an entrepreneur, and then maybe one of your biggest challenges that you've had to overcome?
Wow, that's a good question. My biggest success, I think probably my biggest success as an entrepreneur is making the Forbes 30 Under 30 list.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that would have to be the highlight because um, so what it did for me personally is it gave me huge validation that I was on the right track because I was really in an uncertain place like the month before it happened.
Okay.
And so that's what it did for me personally. Professionally, it gave us so much credibility, like extreme amount of respect, and it helps you so much, especially in the sales process or forming new relationships and partnerships, because it's all about, building trust and credibility in those initial phases. And, everyone, when you have the seal of approval from Forbes, that's like everyone is like, oh yeah, you know what you're talking about. But it's also, that also happened 3.5 years in. So it was also like, oh, everything that you've been talking about, we get it now. Like you are, innovating the hair care industry because, my award was for the retail and e-commerce market. The retail and e-commerce category, and also building on the fact that personalization is driving the future of retail and e-commerce. And that's what we have been talking to so many businesses about. And, that is one of our key messages to our customers is all about, catering to your unique hair type and texture. And that's how you know which products are best for you. So I'll have to say that's probably my biggest success thus far. My biggest challenge, I would say, is maintaining like long-term growth and the team that's needed at each stage of growth. So I've had, up to probably 14 to 18 team members at one time, even down to one or two.
Wow.
And it's everyone, should definitely know that, you need a team to grow and build, because if your vision is only requires you, then your vision is not big enough. So your vision typically requires, a team of people that have the right skill set and mindset to build at different stages of growth. And so, we have grown a lot and we've had different stages of growth. And the challenge is having the right people at each stage of growth, as well as, the sustainability to be able to hire a full-time team or to, hire the key people that you need. That I think is the biggest challenge for a growing startup, and just being able to manage the ups and downs of that too, mentally as an entrepreneur. So, that's definitely, I think, a lot of entrepreneurs can relate to that, but it's something that, you definitely have to master to keep steady growth and to keep the momentum going.
That's a good point. So I don't want to keep you too long, but I do want to talk about your new book a little bit called The Shift, right? Congratulations on your publication. That's so exciting.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So when did you decide that you wanted to become an author, and what was the motivation behind this particular book?
So I decided to write about my experience as an entrepreneur because I definitely hit a very challenging period where I felt like I was really burnt out and exhausted, and I wasn't achieving like my goals the way that I felt like I should. And so I took a month off just to reflect and really surrender to God and ask for His guidance in this journey to, building my company and bringing like this vision that I have for my company to life. And so I wanted to write about that process because a lot of people, I would get a lot of emails from people too, like maybe after I speak somewhere or if they read an article about my company before. And I realized that, you know, a lot of people have the same questions, like, how do I get started? How do I grow? You know, I'm running into this challenge. You know, what should I do? Or, and even like just the mental aspects of it, like, because I was also, you know, experiencing a period of depression and anxiety. And so, you know, how do you manage that? How do you get through that? So I wanted to write about it because I feel like it could be really like a guide for other people, so that they don't feel alone during that process. And I also just shared what was revealed to me through that experience, because after that, it was like all the doors open for me, and really everything changed. And so that's what inspired me to write the book. And I recently released it last December. Well, I originally wrote an ebook, and then I decided to write a new edition 2 years later because I was like, oh my gosh, I've learned so much even in these 2 years that I feel like I needed to add to it. And so I released a new edition, and that's what's in the book. And really, I feel that especially people our age, you know, we feel more called to go out there and bring our dreams to life and, you know, not settle for the status quo, or, you know, to be inspired to do something different, or inspired to, you know, just whatever we feel uniquely called to do based on our purpose. Like, we have more of that tenacity and that fearlessness to, you know, just go out there, do it. And that's, you know, kind of different from maybe our parents, or we're just kind of, you know, in our own wave, I would say. And so I feel like, you know, because of that, we're going to be faced with a lot of challenges as well. And so I really talk about the shift is about all areas of life, like how, you know, on that journey is going to affect you personally, professionally, mentally, emotionally, financially, of course, spiritually. And so I just wanted to get that message out there, and just kind of show you a different side of success, because, you know, most of the time if you talk about, you know, just kind of the basics, like building a team, you know, getting your products out there, getting funding, but we really talk about, you know, the personal growth that you're also experiencing too. So yeah, so that's what the book is about. And it just really is an outlet for me too, because I like talking about these things and connecting with people in this way as well. So I'm just excited that it's finally out there. I'm actually having a live event for it on next Saturday, March 24th. So we're actually going to be able to talk about the book live and in person.
Is that in Atlanta?
It's going to be in Atlanta, yeah.
Cool. I might have to check that out.
Yeah, definitely. I'll send you the link for it. It's also on my Instagram page.
Okay.
But it was interesting because someone who bought the book is the one who's spearheading the event, because she's also an entrepreneur. She's also a 9-to-5er, so she feels like, you know, she's making that shift professionally. But just because, you know, other things that we face in our life as well, whether it comes to relationships or you know, the whole nine, all of it affects you. So you're trying to navigate it all at the same time. So, you know, she's the one who took the lead on planning it. And so I'm excited to actually, you know, talk about it more in person. So yeah, you can definitely check it out on my page too.
All right. I downloaded the first chapter from your website last night, and I read it, and I looked through the table of contents and I was like, oh my goodness, this is like exactly what I need to read right now. So I'm definitely going to be
Oh, good.
purchasing it. And then
I'm so glad to hear that.
yes. And I also really liked your, I guess I don't know the technical term, I'm not a published author, but I guess maybe your dedication page. And it said, to my readers, thank you for helping me come out of my comfort zone. What did you mean by coming out of your comfort zone?
Oh, good question. So I have struggled with being transparent about my life, basically. I'm a very private person. So me coming out of my comfort zone was having the courage to share everything that I shared in the book. And that was an area that God was really just pushing me to grow in, because what I heard specifically is that other people need to hear your real story. And so, like when you read it, what you read about me online is going to be very different from what I share in the book. And, having the courage to, because a lot of it is coming from a very real place, I had to be comfortable to start being transparent about the things that I'm going through. And the purpose is really because it's going to help people who are going through the same thing. So that was me coming out of my comfort zone and, just really being okay with that. Because again, you just have to know how you're wired personally, and I'm just someone who is more private than your average person. But now, God was, directly showing me that now, in this season, it's time for you to be more open and really tell your story. So that's what that meant. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to thank you for your transparency in advance, because I was actually thinking about this the other day. I'm like addicted to podcasts and video interviews, because I love to hear sort of the background and deeper thoughts that influence people's journeys and trajectories, whatever they may be. And I feel like, when you're actually listening to a person talk about their journey, it gets a lot more deep and real than, something you might read on a website or on an Instagram post or Facebook post. And I really, as a person who researches everything she can possibly find before doing something, I find that deeper insight is really helpful on my personal journey. And I know that that's really helpful for a lot of other people. So, for what it's worth, thank you for your transparency and openness with your journey. Also, I know it's impacting a lot of people.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, that definitely means a lot to me. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And it definitely keeps me encouraged as well. The more, other people reach out and kind of share, how it's helping them with where they are in their journey. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It means a lot to me.
And for anybody who wants to purchase the book, or even just to, read that first chapter, I'll link that in the notes for this interview so that you can go and get your copy of The Shift as well. And before we wrap up, I just have a few questions that I like to ask at the end of the interviews. They're sort of more fun, lighthearted questions, and I intentionally didn't tell you about them before because I like to get your genuine responses. So what is the last compliment that someone gave you?
Oh, wow. The last compliment. Wow, I'm trying to think.
Or the most memorable compliment, either one.
Oh, the most memorable comment. So someone, I guess the most memorable is that I went to like this co-working space actually earlier this week, and I walked in, and the receptionist was just like, "Oh, I'm so happy to see you. You always light up my day."
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh, that is so sweet." Yeah. Because I mean, like, I just come in and say hi like normal, but I guess, you just never know the effect that you have on people, even in casual encounters. Yeah. So that was definitely a nice compliment. It's different from just saying, oh, you look cute, or, something that's like more, appearance focused, but actually how, you touch someone's life, even when you don't even know. So that was definitely a nice, surprising, but nice compliment. Yeah.
Yeah, that was beautiful. What is your favorite song right now?
Wow. Okay. So my favorite song right now is actually very, I would say probably surprising, but I really love Bartier Cardi by Cardi B. Random, I know, but I love the beat. I love the flow. I don't really like 21 Savage's verse at all.
Yeah,
It's
I
kind
could
of
do
pointless.
without his verse.
Exactly. It's very pointless to me. But
I just like when he says 21, 21, 21.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's probably it. He should probably say that and we would have accepted. But yeah, that's like my favorite song right now.
Okay, and the last one, and if you need a little time to think about this one, it's okay. But what is the one book that has helped you the most on your entire entrepreneurship journey?
Wow. Okay. So on my entrepreneurship journey, so that's a good one. I'm going to share. It's actually a very tactical book that I feel like every entrepreneur should have. But it's called Business Model Generation.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find the author's name really quick. And it's actually something that I utilize in my business like every single day.
Wow. Okay.
It's called, so it's called Business Model Generation, a handbook for visionaries, game changers, and challengers. And the author is Alexander Osterwalder and Yves Pignor. I knew I was going to mess that up. So, and I don't even know what their claim to fame is. But the book is so good because it outlines how to build your business model in the most practical, straightforward way, and how you can continue testing and perfecting it over time.
Awesome.
And also in the book, well, number one, they give you a chart to follow. So there's a chart. The chart is called the Business Model Canvas. So if anyone who's an entrepreneur who's been through any program or whatever, I'm pretty sure you've heard of the Business Model Canvas. And it's like a chart that outlines the 9 different sections of the business model, and it explains it to you in such a way where you can literally see how the money flows, in my opinion, because that's,
Okay.
you got to know that to build a good business. But also in the book, it gives you examples. It gives you examples from existing companies. So they have an example of the Skype business model. They have the Amazon business model. They have so many companies, like real life companies that we're using every day. They like break down their whole business model.
Wow, I want that just for that aspect of it. Like, I just want the access to the business models.
Yeah, exactly. So what's great about it is, if you, depending on the type of business you want to build, you'll literally have a blueprint that is in a similar company, or the business model canvas will be your blueprint. So pretty much when you finish reading the book and going through the book, you will have a blueprint for the type of business that you want to build.
Awesome.
And yeah, so I highly recommend that, just because again, you can't build anything without a blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the reason why a lot of people get stuck or don't know the direction that they're going in is because they're operating without a blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
So before you do anything, read that book. It will inspire you in infinite ways. And it's a pretty cool, visually, the book is pretty cool too. So it's not your traditional, it's not a page just filled with text. It's like graphs. There's a lot of illustrations. There are a lot of Post-it notes, a lot of stories. So that was actually the first book, one of the first books that I got when I started out as an entrepreneur. And I just think everyone needs it.
Yeah, I mean, from what you described, I definitely think everyone needs it. And I'm going to be purchasing a copy of that as well as a copy of the book. So those are my 2 books for the next 2 months.
Yes, awesome. Yes, you will not be disappointed.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Candace. It's been amazing talking to you. Can you let everyone know where they can find you on the internet and social media and whatnot?
Mm-hmm. So you can find me at CandaceVictoria.com and at the CVM Life on social media. So that's CVM, my initials, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. My Facebook page is Candace Victoria as well. And you can contact me directly at cvm@CandaceVictoria.com.
All right. That sounds great. Thank you so much, Candace.
You're welcome, and thanks again for having me.